Whilst working on mountain bikes can be quite straightforward at times, some jobs can become a little bit tricky. So here are 6 straightforward tips to help you on your way. Which way do your pedals tighten? This is something some of my friends struggle with. An important rule to remember is pedals always tighten to the front of the bike and loosen to the rear. This is so they can't loosen when you're pedaling. Now, pedals these days tend to be tightened to the bike with an 8mm Allen key or sometimes a 6, but more traditional pedals, which you might have on your bike, will require a 15mm pedal spanner. So this is the best way to put your pedals on and off. One of the best tips we can offer about removing the pedals from your bike is to actually use your body weight to remove those pedals. So you want to do this with the bike the correct way up. Quite often see people in the car park struggling with a bike upsided on its handlebars and saddle. Now you can remove pedals like this quite happily, but occasionally if you've got a stubborn pedal and your pedal spanner or your Allen key slips, your knuckles are going to be pretty close to either hitting the bottom bracket shell or actually hitting the chainring. So if you do it this way, the worst that can happen is you'll just slip past that. So it's quite an awkward position to get in, but leaning over the top tube, you want to grasp the left hand crank with your left hand, locate the Allen key into the back of the pedal and then firmly push down and you can release it. And it's a case of just fully unthreading the pedal and removing from the bike. Now if your bike doesn't have pedals that use an Allen key, you're more than likely to be using a 15mm spanner. So this is a traditional pedal spanner, you may or may not have one of these. And the advantage of using a spanner over an Allen key is you do this all from the outside of the bike rather than having to reach under the bottom bracket shell. So you can push down on the back just like you would with the Allen key on the inside. And also the handy thing about this method for tightening the pedal is you can actually just cycle the pedal backwards and that will tighten it all the way up. Nice little technique. Whilst disc brakes are very powerful and efficient, they can occasionally rub, and not only is it annoying, you don't really want this to be happening. So I'm just going to show you the easiest way to center your disc brake caliper over the disc. Take a 5mm Allen key, loosen the pinch bolts that hold the caliper onto the bike itself. Then, whilst grasping the rear brake lever, just rotate the wheel forwards a tiny bit and then nip the bolts back up. And that's usually the best way to just center it. Just undo these bolts, just loosen them slightly, just a couple of turns, so the caliper is free to move. Then grabbing the brake lever, rotate the back wheel forwards, or the front wheel, depending which one you're working on, until it's tight, and just nip the bolts up. This method is usually best and the quickest way to get rid of a rubbing disc. However, if it is still rubbing, you may have a bent disc, so that's something you need to consider. And also you can do fine tuning from above. So what you're looking for is some fresh air between the rotor itself and the pads, and you can just adjust one bolt at a time and move the caliper. If it is still rubbing after that, then it's likely that you might need to bleed your brake. Whilst there are a lot of manufacturers that make forks, the two biggest, Rock Shox and Fox, you'll see on most bikes. Now, Rock Shox have their own Maxwell system, as on this bike here, and Fox have the QR15 system made by Shimano. So we're just going to show you how to use both of those for the safest position. So this is one of the original Maxwells, and you still see a lot of these. This particular one is a 20mm, but they're often seen in 15. So there's a flange on the top here, so when you tighten it into the fork, use that flange to secure it, and you pull the lever down. So on the more modern versions of these, there's a 2.5mm Allen key head in the end for adjusting the tension to keep that quick release lever tight. On this particular one, an original, you actually adjust the nut on the end here to do the same thing. The ones you'll commonly see these days are the Maxwell Ultimate. Now these don't have an external point of adjustment, but on the inside there's a spring, and actually if you grip this, you can change the orientation of the lever, like so. So what you're looking for when you put your Maxwell in is slide it in until it locates into the threads. You spin it tight and then adjust the lever. And what you're looking for is a firm feel that you can feel in the palm of your hand, but not too tightly you're struggling to tighten it. Now note that the lever is in the forward position here. This is not what you want. If you hit a bit of branch or something out on the trail, this could flip open. And the vibration out on the trail will undo it naturally, and suddenly you end up without a front wheel. Not good. So what you want to do is remove the axle from the bike, and then you can press the end of the axle and spin the top cap around, and you line it up with these to change the orientation of the lever. So on the Fox forks, you see the QR15 system developed by Fox and Shimano. Now this is a bit more simplified. You've got a simple axle with a thread on one end, you've got a lever with a cam on this end, and to adjust the lever position, like the orientation, if I spin the fork around, you'll see there's a captive nut here on the bottom with some numbers and little locking plates. So you simply, with a 2.5mm Allen key, undo this little locking plate and you can rotate the captive nut. And what that does is it allows you to tighten the lever in the correct position. Again, just like the Rock Shox fork, you don't want the quick release lever to be facing out the front of the bike, so you don't want it to snag and accidentally open. Facing up in line with the fork is the best and safest way for this. So removing the rear wheel from a bike may sound very simple, but a lot of people make some little mistakes with this. So I'm going to show you two methods, one with SRAM and one with Shimano. So starting off, you want to make sure that your drivetrain is in the smallest sprocket at the back. So you want the chain to have the minimum amount of tension on it, and this makes it easiest to remove the rear wheel. Secondly, with Shimano, you want to make sure the clutch is off on the mech. So as you can see, that's in off position, which is the lower position. On, just for demonstration, is up. So as you can see here, this is a Shimano mech and they've got the clutch on them. The clutch is used to put tension on the lower cage. As you can see, it's quite firm with it on, and when it's off, it's relatively simple. So it's important to make sure you turn this off for removing the wheel, so you want the minimum amount of tension on the chain just to make sure the wheel drops out nice and easy. So with your transmission on the smaller sprocket, the chain's nice and loose, your clutch is off, you're ready to take the rear wheel out. So it's as simple as removing your rear wheel axle, pulling the rear mech down. This is why you wanted it loose, and out goes the wheel. Now it's also important to remember why you've done this for installing the wheel. So it becomes a lot easier to line the chain up on a smaller sprocket than trying to guess where it would be if the chain was far higher up the block. So the same process for the SRAM mech. Again, make sure your chain is in the smaller sprocket for the same reason, wants to be nice and slack. The SRAM mech has a clutch, but it's a bit different to the Shimano one in the fact that you can't turn it on and off. So as you can see, there's a lot of chain tension here, so it makes it hard to move the jockey cage. But SRAM mechs have a little lock just here. So what you want to do is pull the cage all the way down, you push the lock button, and it actually holds your mech in the position with the chain nice and loose. Another thing that crops up is the correct adjustment of your seat collar. So you see a lot of people hanging off their Allen keys, tightening these up, but they don't need to be that tight. So firstly, you don't want to over tighten them, in this case on a carbon frame, so you can actually crack and damage the carbon. And secondly, it's got a dropper post, which is very common these days. So you don't want to over tighten it because it can hinder the use of the dropper post itself. So there are two things that you want to adhere to when you're tightening your seat clamp, and that is using a torque wrench and using some sort of grease or assembly compound. So finally, the last little tip is to keep hold of these little spacers. So these would have come with your bike when they're new, hopefully you still got them. If not, it is worth getting some. So what they're for is to put between your brake pads to space them out. So these can actually be used if you've actuated your brake with the wheel not in the bike, so your pads are stuck together. A bit better than using a screwdriver to pry them apart. And also, if you're traveling with your bike, so let's just say you're taking your front wheel off and you're putting your bike in the back of the car, and you can use this to stop that happening by just squeezing it straight in between your pads. So your brakes will be perfect when you install your wheel again. Okay, so don't forget to click on the globe in the middle here to subscribe. It's a brand new video every single day. 5 new mountain bike skills. If you want to learn about those, click up here. If you want to learn about clips and flats and what works best, click down here. And if you like the video, don't forget, give us a thumbs up.